Welcome back everyone to part 8.5, actually not part 9 of this series, and the reason this is part 8.5 is because before moving on to part 9 and adding more features, I wanted to spend some time fixing some of the bugs that I've seen and also adding some minor improvements. And also at the end of this tutorial I have a nice little surprise for all my patrons, so stick around. So first thing we want to do, or first bug I noticed, is that the idle animations aren't looping. So you see right now the player is frozen because the idle animation plays once and then it doesn't loop. And I think I did this for all the idle animations. So let's fix that. Let's go to, well, first one, let's go to ABP player, the animation blueprint for the player. And in our anim graph, locomotion, under idle, select the magic idle and make sure loop animation is on. And we want to do this for all the others as well. We have ABP Mani, who has a locomotion state, an idle state, and stored idle. This one, the MM idle and MF idle, were already looping by default, but if they're not, make sure loop animation is set to true. And finally, we have ABP Mani ranged, idle, rifle idle, looping. And I don't think I changed anything in Quinn. No, Quinn is the same. All right, so now if we play, now the idle animation should keep on looping. Perfect. All right, so one bug fixed. That one was easy. All right, now second bug, a bit more difficult, is when an enemy is in the passive state and we attack them, they don't respond to the damage and attack us back. They don't switch to an attacking state. And I thought it's because in the enemy's AI, in the AI interface, in the AI controller, that we didn't implement something for sensing damage, but we do. So here in our perception update, we have sense sight, sense hearing, and sense damage. And then we have handle sense sight, handle sense sound, and handle sense damage. And this handle sense damage, it checks if we are in the passive state or investigating state, then set the state as attacking. If you're already attacking and you receive damage, don't do anything. If you're frozen, receive damage, don't do anything. And if you're dead and receive damage, don't do anything. Now, the problem is when you receive damage, you do a hit reaction, and a hit reaction puts you in the frozen state. So this means that we're going off this execution pin and not doing anything. Now, I can simply connect this execution pin here, and this will work. But there's a few problems. The hit reaction doesn't happen because we take the enemy immediately out of the frozen states when we enter. And also, what if the enemy is stunned? And if they're stunned, they'll be in the frozen state. That means that any damage they take while stunned will take them out of the frozen state and into the attacking state. And we don't want that. So let's look at why this is happening. So I'm going to open up our enemy base class here. And I'm going to look at the hit response event. So when we call the hit response, we set the state to frozen, play a montage. And once the montage completes, we set the state back to attacking. So why isn't the state going back to attacking here when they do the hit reaction? Well, because we don't have an attack target and we don't have a last known attack target as well. If you remember, last known attack target is the target that they were already attacking before going into the frozen state. And since they were never attacking anyone, this is also invalid. So both these attack targets are not valid. So what we need is actually this hit response event to know what or who the attack target is, who caused the hit response. Now, this means we're going to have to modify the damage system a bit. So you can right-click here and say Edit, or take it from the damage system folder and open up the BPC damage system. And in the take damage function, this is what calls on damage response and passes the damage response. Now in this function, when we call on damage response, we also want to pass the damage causer, who caused the damage. That means the take damage function needs to know who caused the damage. So first thing we need to do is add an input to the take damage function inside of our BPC damage system component. and call it damage causer. And this is going to be of type actor. Actor and object reference. Now we can modify this on damage response by clicking here in the event dispatchers on damage response and adding the damage causer to the inputs as well. Damage causer. Great. Now we just have to plug it in here. Well, compile first. Refresh this node. Well, I don't know why this happened. Refresh node and plug it in here. Great. Let me just tidy this up a bit. All right. Now we need to modify this take damage function in a few places. So first of all, in our enemy where we implement it, first in our interface. So we have this BPI damageable interface that also has a take damage function. We should add damage causer here as well. Damage causer, type actor, object reference, compile. Now back here in our enemy base, under interfaces, find the implementation of the take damage. Why is this called new parameter? Ugh, damage causer. Why can't I name it damage causer? Let me just add a space. It's angry for me for some reason. I'm just gonna call it damage causer with a space. Shouldn't matter. And I'm just gonna plug in damage causer here. Ignore this error for now. We're gonna get back to it. But in the BP player, we want to do the same because the BP player also implements the interface. Take damage, plug in damage causer here as well. Excellent. So now back in our enemy base, the hit response should be an event with damage causer as well. So we have to modify it here, and this is the error we were getting. So I'm going to delete this where we bind to on damage response. And I'm going to say custom events, call it hit response. Oh, I didn't delete the old one. I'm going to call it just hit response 2. Ooh, where am I? And delete this one. Rename this to hit response. Now we have the damage causer. Before we forget, sorry, let's just go up here and say create event and select our hit response event. So if you recall, this was one way of binding. The other is just clicking the BPC damage system and choosing the on damage response here on the bottom. All right, so now we can pass in the attack target as our as the damage causer. Great. Just move this a bit here. All right. But before this works, there's a few things we have to do. We call this take damage function in a few places. So I'm going to search for take damage and click on this one and see everywhere where we call take damage. So we call it in the player. These are the two implementations that we just did. So these have damage causer and it's fine. This is the interface. This is also the base enemy where we just did it. And in BPC attacks, we have two instances of it. So one is in here in the fire bullet. Damage causer should also be added. And damage causer here would be a reference to get owner. So because this is in the attacks component, whoever is implementing this component is the one that's causing the damage. And also we have another one for magic spell here. So same thing, get owner will be the damage causer. All right. Where else? We have one in the melee. So also in the melee, damage causer here, since we're already in the melee enemy class, damage causer here is just self, because it's the melee that's causing damage when doing this attack. Excellent. So now let's test it out. Now I'm going to damage the enemy. They do the hit response and switch to attacking. Perfect. So now that's another bug fixed. All right, so another bug we want to fix is I noticed that you can keep spamming the attack animation, and then if you do that, you'll be moving within the attack animation. and we want to fix that. So let me close everything other than the player. So for the player, once we do, where is it? Where is our Hadouken attack? Oh yeah, here it is. Shoot magic spell. So once we enter this magic spell, we want to prevent the player from being able to spam it. So we're gonna do something. Instead of having a variable called is attacking and checking if we're attacking or not, I'm just going to do right click and search for do once. So do once means that no matter how many times you call this, oh, and I'm going to add it just after the condition here. So this means no matter how many times you call it, just do this once. So if I just leave everything as is now and I keep clicking, I'm clicking and I can no longer do the magic spell because it's already done once. Obviously that's not what we want, but we have an option here called reset, so allowing you to do it again. So once the animation ends, we can reset. Now you can simply, of course, plug in on completed and on interrupted here, but I'd rather do it a bit cleanly and have a new custom event called reset magic spell. Plug it in here and then just call reset magic spell here. That's a bit cleaner. All right, let's test this out. Now I can only shoot once. I'm now spamming the click button and I can only shoot once it finishes, and I can no longer move while shooting. Nice. And just for you to know, the reason I could move while shooting is because when you shoot once, we set can move to false. But on interrupt, we set can move to true. So this means that when you shoot again, you call the montage again, which interrupts the first montage that was playing and sets can move to true because it calls the on interrupt. So it's good to ensure that we only call this once. All right, that's another bug fixed. All right, now another bug, and I think you've seen this bug before in the other tutorials, is as the enemy's about to kill me, if they do kill me, they sometimes put the sword back, then switch to attacking state, and then switch to passive again. Now let me show you why this happens. So over in the enemy base, so BP enemy base, we have in the event graph on hit response, after response is done, we set the state to attacking. So if you just hit the enemy right before they kill you, this will still run, and they're going to set state to attacking and use the last known target. But they don't check if their target is already dead. So the way we're going to fix this is that in our AI controller, enemies AI, AIC enemy base, we have this set state as attacking function. And after we check if the target is valid, we also want to check if the target is dead or not. Oh, actually, I don't know. I think I deleted this, but we had set state as passive here if the target wasn't valid. So over here, after checking if the target is valid, we want to check if the target is dead or not. So I move this here. Off of new targets, I'm going to create a new reroute node and check is dead, because we have is dead as a function in the damageable interface. And if they are dead, let me put a branch here. These a bit. If they are dead, I'm just going to set the state to passive as well. But if they're not dead, I'm going to do everything I was already doing before. All right. Whoops. Okay, this looks good. So this should fix the bug. Let's test it out. Compile and save. Now the enemy is going to attack me. I'm going to hit them, and right before they attack me, come on, kill me. Puts back the sword. Nice, and stays in the passive state. Great, another bug fixed. And another bug I noticed is that if the enemy is running after me and I damage them, oh, not I damage them actually, and they block my damage. They still slide a bit. I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but they slide a bit while moving towards me, so they don't stop moving immediately. If you recall in the melee tree, before block we set the movement speed to idle, but this doesn't stop them from moving completely, because if they still have some acceleration, they will continue to move. So what we want to do is in the block state for our melee character, BP enemy melee, we had the block here. As soon as start block is called, we want to also call stop movement immediately, which is a function on the character movement class. Stop movement immediately. So this will ensure that they will always stop moving before blocking. All right, let me add a comment on all of these and call it blocking. All right, just tidying things up a bit. All right. So this won't happen now. I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but let me show it to you again. Yep, now it's not happening anymore. All right, another bug fixed. All right, now the next bug is quite an interesting one. So let me get my ranged enemy for this one and delete this melee enemy. Now, while I was playing around with the ranged enemy, I noticed that they are moving away from my projectiles. So I'm gonna shoot them. I noticed that he tries to run away from them, which I found very strange because we didn't implement that behavior. See, as soon as I shoot, he tries to move. And I was curious, why? See that? Yeah, I was like, why is that happening? It seemed too smart because we didn't implement this behavior. But then I realized that the EQS of the ranged enemy always tries to remain in line of sight of the player. But when I shoot this projectile, it blocks line of sight. So the ranged enemy thinks that they can't see me anymore, so they move to a place where they actually can see me. So that was an interesting bug. And fixing it is quite easy, actually. So fixing it, just we go to our projectile system, open up the base projectile, and under box collision, go to the collision presets and make sure that it doesn't block visibility. So make sure that it ignores visibility. That means that if we do a trace on the visibility channel, the projectiles will be ignored. So now if I do this, now he's back to being stupid and getting attacked without realizing it. Yep. Great. Now another improvement now I want to make. It's not a bug, but it's something that's annoying me. And that's that the player has their health bar on top of their head. And I don't like that. I don't want to have the health bar on top of my head. I want it to be in like a HUD. So let's add it to, we already have a HUD where we show this crosshair. So let's add a health bar to it. So opening up our widgets folder, open up our player HUD. Let's search for progress bar over here. You can drop it anywhere. And make sure to anchor it on the bottom left corner. This is where we're going to put it. And position X to 0, position Y to 0. Size, let's say it's about 400 in width and 40 in height. I think that's about fine. Alignment, make sure it's 1. What was it? No, so we want 0 on the X and 1 on the Y. So now it's exactly in the corner. We can start adding some padding to it. So on the X, let's maybe add 50, and on the Y, -50. So to move it 50 points away from here and 50 points away from here. All right. So now we have this progress bar with a percentage. Let's change the color a bit. Let's make it some sort of greenish hue, like this color. Yeah. And on the %, click on bind and create binding. This will give us a function that whatever value we put here will be the value of the widget percentage. First, we need a reference to our player. So I'm going to add a variable here and call it player ref. And this is going to be of type BP player. Make sure it's both instance editable and expose on spawn, because we're going to be adding this reference from the player once we spawn the HUD. And get this player ref, call get max health on it, and also call get current health. And the amount here is the current health divided by the max health. All right. Just tidying it up a bit. Now back to our BP player. Where do we initialize the HUD? Yeah, right here where we initialize the HUD. Refresh. Now we have a player ref and just pass in self here. Great, so let's see if we have a health bar, starts at 100, take damage, and it's working. Now let's delete this health bar on top of our heads. Yeah, just delete this thing. And where did we initialize it? Yeah, here, delete that, and we're just gonna leave the call to display HUD. All right, much better. Now we have our health in a widget where it should be. All right, one more improvement I want to make is that we don't have, oh, sorry, I forgot to delete this one. All right, we don't have hit reactions for the player. So if the enemy hits me, I don't do any hit reactions. So yeah, let's fix that. We do have death though, that's good. So hit reactions, let's do it the simple way by clicking on the damage system, going down here on the right and clicking on damage response. This will create the event for us. And the first thing we want to do is when we're taking damage or doing the hit response is disable input. That means we can't move basically. So call disable inputs, and player controller is get player controller. Player index is 0. I only have one player. And then we will play a montage in the skeletal mesh. And this is going to be the let's play the sword hit montage. And then on completed, we want to enable input again, and also on interrupted. And this again takes the player controller, get player controller function. Yeah, I think that is it. Let's see what that looks like. Hit me, boom, okay. And once he's hitting me, I can't move, so yeah, no, I can't move. Great. And of course, if I'm doing an attack and I get hit, interrupts the attack. Perfect. Now, one final improvement I want to make. Let me delete this enemy. So this is going to be in our aiming system. Because the player is shifted a bit to the left and we're aiming to the center of the screen, the way we do it is not exactly correct. And let me show you. If I aim right here in the center of this square, look at where the projectile will go. That definitely was not in the center, you can tell, right? But if I aim very far away here and I shoot, it's gonna reach the center of the screen eventually. About right now. And why is it right now? Because this point is exactly 10,000 units away. And if we go to the BPC attacks, oh no, sorry, not BPC attacks, in the shoot magic spell in the player, where is it? Shoot magic spell here. we set the look at rotation, the target where the projectile should go, to be the forward vector of the camera multiplied by 10,000. Now, this doesn't take into account if we hit something before reaching the 10,000 point, because if we do hit something, if there's something closer than 10,000, like this square I'm aiming at, then the target should be this square and not 10,000 units away. So we need to do another line trace to see if we hit something or not. Let me show you what this looks like. So I'm going to move all of this a bit further away, even further. Keep these here. And the target. All right, so now we have our follow camera. We're getting the forward vector, the world location. This is all correct, but this value is not going to be the target. We're going to do another line trace. So do a line trace by channel, and the channel is visibility. That is correct. All right, plug this here. The start will be the world location of the camera, and the end will be the end multiplied by the forward vector multiplied by 10,000. And now this can be 10,000, 20, it can be any number you want. But what we get out of the hit, now this is going to be very important. Move this a bit. So if we do hit something, I'm going to make a branch here. If we do hit something, we want the location of the thing we hit to be our target here for the rotation of the projectile. So we do have an impact point here location. We can use both. So if I plug this in right away, look what will happen now. I aim at the center. Oh, where's my... Oh, I forgot to plug this in to true. All right, so now if I aim at the center, it goes to the center exactly. But if I aim up here and I don't hit anything, it doesn't go anywhere because we didn't say what would happen if there's a false. We want to use on the false where the trace ended, so this one. That means because if we don't hit anything, just use the maximum value which we set here as the end of your projectile trace. So instead of doing a branch, I will actually do a select here on this target. So do a select vector. Let's give myself a bit of room. So the value of this select, well, the Boolean value will be whether there's a hit or not. If there's a hit, we pick A, which is the location or impact point. And if there is no hit, we pick B, which is this one. And just plug this in here. All right, so now it should work for both states. Now if I aim here, it goes exactly to the center. And if I aim up here, also fires, and after 10,000 units, it goes to the center. Perfect. And let me just make sure this should go exactly where I'm aiming. Nice, and exactly where I'm aiming, regardless of the distance, as long as it's not more than 10,000. Great. All right, now we're at the end of the bug fixing and improvements. So let me show you the surprise I mentioned at the beginning of the video. So for all of the, let me open the, for example, animation blueprint of the player. You'll notice that in the anim graph, I removed all of the disable leg IK things. I also removed them from Manny. I removed them everywhere. And basically any montage that was using the disable leg IK curve, we don't need that anymore. So the leg IK issue was mainly caused when using Mixamo animations retargeted on the UA skeleton, because Mixamo animations by default don't have a root bone. Now I'm using a new way of retargeting Mixamo animations now that allows me to add a root bone to all of the animations I get from Mixamo. This means that we now can have leg IK So if you don't know what leg IK does, for example, now if I'm on a slope, it keeps my feet on the slope, not like one hanging off the air like this. Of course, here I can't reach the floor, but here I can. So you see this, leg IK does that. Now with Mixamo animations, like this animation as well, I also have leg IK. So you see here, perfect. So now this makes the Mixamo animations look a lot more realistic and better, but not only that, this means that you can have root motion in these Mixamo animations. And I implemented root motion in the sword block. So when the enemy blocks with a sword, oh, he did not block this time. When the enemy blocks with a sword, he gets knocked back a bit. Let me show this to you by setting the global time dilation to something like 0.25 just to make everything in slow motion. And let's have the enemy start facing us. And when I press play, look what happens when I attack the enemy. See how they got knocked back a bit? This is because in the, where is it? Sword block react. Yeah, this one. This animation, if I play it, there's now root motion. And root motion I added in Unreal Engine. It's not in the animation itself, it's in the animation asset of Unreal. So all my patrons who download the full project files will have all of the new animations. I replaced every single Mixamo animation that we're using for the melee, for the rifle, for the magic. All of these I replaced them with new root motion, root bone animations that we can add root motion to if we wanted. To give more, to make our animations more dynamic. So I hope you enjoy it, and of course, link to my Patreon down in the description.